Hi, I'm Rachel, and this should be my final MockReads 2022 video, I believe, because my MockReads videos are supposed to correspond to the Goodreads Choice Awards. Yeah, the Goodreads Choice Awards, you know, the highly popular People's Choice sort of awards from the infamous, social media site for reading. It takes place probably each year. The judging will open up. It used to be in October, and I think now that they got away from the first write-in round, they open up in November. That's when I'm expecting the Goodreads Choice Awards to open up. And I used to use GCA as a way, to encourage myself to read frontlist titles, because I figured I could read whatever I want, and even if the books aren't popular, that first round had a write-in option. So I could still vote, at least in one round in my favorite genres. But as of last year, they did away with the write-in round, and they're going to, present us with, however, I guess Goodreads and Amazon decides are the worthy books. I mean, they certainly will be some of the most popular ones that have been talked about in 2022, and certainly I think some of the books I decided I wanted to read are among the most popular ones, but others aren't. So I decided instead that I would do my own little award called the MockReads Choice Awards. And in fact, going back to, I think, 6 months ago, I was making myself reading lists in my favorite genres because I wanted to make sure that I'd get them onto my TBR, alongside all the other crazy stuff that I want to read month per month. So yeah, I have 2 videos I can link down below of just a handful of titles in science fiction and fantasy and literary fiction, contemporary literary fiction and historical fiction that I decided I wanted to read, and I'm slowly getting through those lists. I mean, by this point, now I have limited time before the Goodreads Choice Awards will open, because I am hoping, if any of the ones I want to read get on those lists, I can vote for them. So yeah, why am I making another video now? Because basically I guess I've covered all the genres that I'm going to hyper-focus on. Well, one of the reasons I decided to make a video is that in my contemporary fiction ballot, I put Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which I still plan to read ultimately, but the truth is I just can't get to it in time. I think it's just such a hugely popular book that there's just holds for miles through my library. So I decided to swap it out for another book that I hope is somewhat popular, at least given my biased way of, hearing about books. The book I'm swapping it out for is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, which I can get on audio from my library, so huzzah. And I'm really excited for this one. I feel like it's one of those types of books that has sort of a mystery thriller edge, but it ends up being more literary. I feel like sometimes I go by negative comments, and all the people who didn't like how the mystery thriller aspects were handled and said it was too slow, I'm like, aha! This might be for me. And like I said, I still plan to read Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow. It might end up being that I actually get to it in 2023. And on that note, of late, I've been accumulating a whole bunch of 2022 titles in my genres I picked that I would love to read, but I'm almost positive that I won't get to them before the Goodreads Choice Awards or even in 2022. So yeah, I might be making myself a 2023 reading goal right here, right now. And I figured I'd go just quickly share the books with you that have caught my fancy, and I'm curious to hear what you think of them as well. So sticking first with like literary contemporary fiction, the first book I'll talk about is Human Blues by Elisa Albert. Elisa Albert's an author I've read a couple of times before, and I guess I have a mixed response to her sort of provocative storytelling. Like, it's sort of, she has these cynical, curse-laden sort of, I guess, millennial protagonists, female protagonists. There's something that almost feels blatantly political about it, but I almost feel like it's just a lifestyle thing, and I kind of like what she's saying more than how she says it sometimes. And this one, like I think a couple of her others, like After Birth, is interrogating motherhood. The next one that caught my fancy is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which I'm kind of putting on because I know it's going to be kind of huge, and I read the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, and I loved it, but I haven't read anything else by her, so I feel like this is my attempt to try to encourage myself to read something new by her. And this is also, I think, a little bit different than a lot of her other works, which the Poisonwood Bible was too. The Poisonwood Bible took place in colonial Africa, and this one actually is a retelling of David Copperfield, and I think it focuses a lot on Appalachia. And talks about growing up impoverished there, which is, harkens to Dickens talking about growing up impoverished in London. And finally, in contemporary / literary fiction, I am putting this book back on my docket. In my last MockReads contemporary literary historical fiction video, I was angsting a bit about where exactly this book fit, because it takes place in the 1990s, which feels contemporary enough. I mean, I guess technically it could be historical, maybe more historical than I would like to admit to at my age. But anyway, also it is a family drama story which harkens back to the past in the family a lot, but it's not a story that necessarily uses time travel or anything to get there. So I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to put it, but now I think I just want to say it's contemporary fiction and give it a read. So there we go. But speaking of historical fiction, I decided I also wanted to add a handful of new books to that list as well. So I'm going to start with another one I own. This is Horse by Geraldine Brooks. This is a very recent acquisition. I just had it on my last book haul from September. I got it from the National Book Festival where Geraldine Brooks was signing. Anyway, this book is about a real-life famous racing horse from the antebellum South called Lexington, and this is I think, multiple timeline story. So we're following Lexington, or more accurately, his handlers in the antebellum South, and his handlers were, I think, well, the major fictional character I think she's following is a black slave who took care of Lexington. And then in future timelines, we're following other characters who are looking into artwork of Lexington and curating that into a show, I believe, in the mid-20th century. And then in a more contemporary storyline, I think we're looking back both at the art world and at Lexington's life, and at the history of slavery through the eyes of certain characters. So technically there is a contemporary, I think, storyline in here, but, two historical storylines trump that. Other historical books of interest are Before All the World by Muriel Rothman Zecher. This is another repeat author for me. I read another one of his stories, which was contemporary, and it was interrogating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, particularly from the viewpoint of a young Jewish man about to enter the IDF, and grappling with the fact of what his Palestinian friends would think about him serving in the occupied territories. And this one is much different. It takes place in the United States, I think around the early 20th century. There's a lot of Yiddish characters, I think also black and queer characters and that sort of thing. And in fact, the Jewish Book Council later this month is going to do an event with the author, like a Zoom event. So I will link to that down below. I do believe I will be signing up and listening in on that. Another repeat author for me is Philippa Gregory with Dawnlands. Actually, Philippa Gregory has written a whole lot. I think she's most well known for her novels about tutors, but this series of novels that I'm reading from, that Dawnlands is a part of, follows around a much more humble English family, and it's been jumping like in 20-year increments, and it started in the 17th century, and I think it's the first book, Tidelands, started in the 17th century, and we might still be there, or maybe the early 18th century, something like that. But all these I think all the main characters from the first book are still alive, so that's kind of exciting. I thought maybe they would be handing off the reins by now, but I'll still be excited to hear from our intrepid heroine, Eleanor Reedy, and her children and so forth, and see how they interact with English history as it's unfolding. And the final historical fiction book I want to talk about is Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. She was actually also at the National Book Festival, and I was debating if I wanted to get her book and get it signed too. But I decided I didn't want to go too overboard, and in fact I left the book fest before she talked, alas. But anyway, all of that to say, I'm just really intrigued by this because it takes, you know, one of America's most infamous assassins, John Wilkes Booth, who killed Abraham Lincoln at the Ford Theater in D.C., and it takes a look at his family and really fleshes them out. So I thought that was that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. And finally, just a brief nod to science fiction and fantasy, I am reminding myself of, in this case, of one of the books I put on my anticipated reads TBR, so I might as well get to it. Well, this is a bind-up called Memories Legion of science fiction novellas about, well, the science fiction series, The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. And the last novella in this collection is The Sins of Our Fathers, which is the one that is new as of 2022. So yeah, I guess I want to read the frontlist new novella, but also all the backlist ones in here as well. So if I don't get to it this year, definitely in 2023. And finally, in terms of books that haven't been released yet but are coming very soon in early November, we have Empire of Exiles by Aaron M. Evans, which is a book I think I randomly heard about this book just jumping around Twitter or something, not even from my usual like podcast Rex sort of way for anyway. So I don't know, what jumped out to me about this one is that well, it's epic fantasy in a secondary world setting, which is, you know, my soft spot when it comes to fantasy. But we are following along like scribes and archivists who are, you know, involved in a revolution. But, you know, they're not the swords people, they're the scribes and the archivists. So I thought that was really exciting. And I hear that there might be some complex world building in here, and that's another big thing for me. So eager to give it a go. So that about covers it for me now. I will leave the Goodreads links for all of these books that I mentioned listed down below, and who knows, hopefully a few of them will make it into the Goodreads Choice Awards, and maybe I can vote for them or maybe not, depending on if I get to them in time. I hope any of you who are actually taking the Goodreads Choice Awards as seriously as I seem to be are enjoying your reading in prep for those awards, or for anything else, I guess, because, you know, reading all of the popular books, frontlist books of 2022 means you're well versed in all sorts of awards that might be coming up. And anyway, no matter what you're reading, I hope that you are enjoying it. And I will be back on this channel in the next few days for my page 112 tag to talk about a book that I will be reading myself a little more imminently. It'll be a backlist book, but it will be, you know, a book that's already on my physical shelf, so huzzah, it's always nice to check one of those off, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.